My name is Moriba Jah, and I'm here to basically welcome you to this event of the Diverse Dozen. And this whole thing was born from recognizing that we as a humanity are collectively making decisions that are resulting in our self-extinction. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And somehow, along the way of our history, we've greatly forgotten that all things are interconnected. We have abandoned the idea of the interconnectedness. We have abandoned our intergenerational contract of stewardship with the planet in lieu of ownership, which asks us to claim rights. Stewardship asks us to claim responsibilities. And we have grown unempathetic to many of the wicked problems that we have today. But Mother Nature is resilient when we take our foot off the gas pedal and listen to the feedback that Mother Nature provides us regarding the unintended consequences of our actions and decisions. So one of the things that inspired me was so-called traditional ecological knowledge, the knowledge that many indigenous First Nation people have, in that they recognize and live daily with this belief of the interconnectedness. They still embrace this intergenerational contract of stewardship with the planet. They're the original stewards of Spaceship Earth. They have a lot to teach us. Many indigenous people live every day believing that they are in an existential crisis, and the only way through it is to have a successful conversation with the environment. Many of us don't live believing that we are in that existential crisis. Many of us don't accept that we need to be stewards and we need to achieve attunement in order for us to be able to not just survive, but thrive as a species. So with that, I and the IAA and Ascend have come together to develop this annual event where we select 12 people across humanity to come to this stage on this day to speak to you about important things related to the stewardship, the interconnectedness, and what we must do for Spaceship Earth to thrive. With that, I'm going to introduce the first D12 member, and his name is Mustapha Agbadi. Thank you very much.
Let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a million nights just like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Agbadi Mustapha, and today I want to discuss a topic of great significance in our quest to explore the cosmos and safeguard its future. It's about Ubuntu and emerging space state, fostering space sustainability in the global governance framework. As we venture into the vastness of outer space, driven by our insatiable thirst for knowledge, we must not forget the importance of space sustainability. The consequences of an unguarded activities in space, such as the use of anti-satellite weapons, can impact on our world significantly. In this endeavor, emerging space states of the global south play a pivotal role in shaping the future of space sustainability. Let's start by understanding what Ubuntu is. Ubuntu is an indigenous African philosophy that underscores the interconnectedness and shared responsibility. In the Zulu culture, Ubuntu is encapsulated by the phrase, "A person is a person through other persons." This philosophy emphasizes that whatever happens to the individual affects the entire group and vice versa. Just as Ubuntu underscores the interdependence of human and the ecosystem that supports us, space sustainability must highlight the interdependence of our celestial bodies. The pathway to space sustainability is not a solitary journey. It requires collaboration and shared responsibility. I propose a series of actionable recommendations to guide us to this path. 1, strengthening international framework and agreements that reflect Ubuntu's ethos of interconnectedness. This framework can foster a shared commitment to space sustainability. 2, promoting awareness and education about Ubuntu principle to inspire a cultural shift towards responsible space activities. This is essential to protect outer space from irresponsible actions that can undermine years of innovation in space science and technology. 3, encouraging emerging space states to identify their values, collaborate, and actively engage in global forums such as the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs and the ASEAN, just like we have today. This diversity and space diplomacy can galvanize an international collaboration for a safe, secure, and sustainable use of outer space. In this pivotal moment, as we look into the heavens with hope and curiosity, let us remember the wisdom of Ubuntu and the promise of emerging space states. Their journey mirrors our own, an exploration of the unknown, guided by shared responsibility and commitments to a brighter and more sustainable future for generations yet unborn. Thank you. Next is Sahil.
Let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a million nights just like this.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sahil, and today I would like to start off by asking a simple question. What does a golf ball, a hammer, a family photograph, and a pair of tongs have in common? Well, they are obviously household objects, but they've found a permanent place on the moon. That, and alongside hundreds of spacecrafts, instruments, rovers, and payloads, well, how do I put this delicately? Bags of payloads that have been produced by astronauts. We have accumulated over 200 tons of debris around the moon. And closer to home, we have about 130 million pieces of debris floating around in orbit. And these debris threaten our very space infrastructure and orbital resources that we have. If it's not clear yet, we humans are extremely messy, and we are not so great at cleaning up our messes. Especially in deep space exploration, sustainability has been an afterthought. With over 50 planned lunar missions in the next years, that includes human exploration and commercial endeavors, if we want to continue at the same pace, we must have sustainability in mind. Just as we know of the crisis in low Earth orbit, no one wants to read the headlines, orbital debris found on the moon. And if we want to continue with sustainable space exploration, end-to-end sustainability in our operations is an essential. In the past few years, there have been a lot of instances of mismanagement or irresponsible action. We've had microorganisms end up on the lunar surface. We have had rogue bodies, rocket bodies, traveling around the solar system, coming and impacting the moon. And we've also had on-orbit collision avoidance maneuvers to prevent breakups in orbit. And these are all going to be more and more frequent in the coming years. The question is that now that we have technologies such as space domain awareness, space traffic management, and in-service operations, where the only thing that we lack is action. Today, as the space industry steps in the limelight and we have this new wave of interest and investment, we must capitalize on this opportunity to advocate for space sustainability. Recently, in the last few months, we were really excited to see the Chandrayaan-3 lander land on the moon, and we had over 1 billion people watching the world over. Now, this new generation of people were inspired by what we had achieved in exploring the moon. I believe that as humans, we have an incredible superpower, and that superpower is of storytelling. And space is one of the most powerful stories that we can tell. And this is a chance that we can rewrite space to be more sustainable by rewriting this narrative. After all, we didn't inherit the Earth and its resources from our ancestors. We borrowed it from our children. And essentially, rewriting the story of space exploration that is grounded in empathy and compassion for the Earth and our cosmos is essential. To set the stage for this new narrative, I would like to leave you guys with a question. That question is, what does it mean to be human in space? In the last few decades, or the very first decades of space exploration, being human in space meant, oh, we need to beat the Soviets, we need to beat the Americans, we need to show our nation's technological prowess. But as we've gone and progressed in space exploration, we've realized that it's a collective pursuit of our knowledge. And today, we have to work together to ensure that we clean up our mess in space. So when rewriting this new chapter in space exploration, we have to ask ourselves, we have to take a step back and ask ourselves, what does it mean to be human in space? Let's try to write a better story of our exploration of the cosmos together. Thank you. And now, I would like to invite my friend Pablo Carlos Budassi. Thank you.
Just like this. So let's get down to business.
Hi, I'm Pablo. I'm a science illustrator from Argentina. So I'm here to talk about space sustainability, and the majority of the people in the room, if not all, already know everything about space sustainability. Well, we all know the big diverse picture this issue is. So let's decide on when and where we want to focus our actions first. Did you know that roughly 70% of adult people on Earth and 90% in the US utilize the internet in 2023? Our minds are somehow enhanced and interconnected, but a simple concept of feeling connected with Earth and with the universe is not so granted to the majority of the population, nor to the majority of the ones making space-related decisions. Earth's orbits are a part of our home, and you wouldn't litter dangerous trash at the doorstep of your home, would you? I find it insightful to consider each landscape of the solar system as an early historical map, with humans slowly charting new features and terrains as they gather more observations. Small objects in low Earth orbit and medium-sized objects in geostationary orbit remain as blank, uncharted areas for now. Okay, geo is not a big problem, as there is a relatively low risk of catastrophic collisions there. But our vulnerable LEO, a precious and limited resource, is becoming increasingly congested and needs our full attention and urgent action. Mega constellations are suddenly impacting scientific research, cultural heritage, and more importantly, climate and ecology. The space industry shouldn't normalize that every single deorbiting satellite brings aluminum and other pollutants into the upper atmosphere, affecting circulation in ways we cannot quite predict. Every single rocket launch introduces greenhouse gases and pollutants into the upper atmosphere, influencing the ozone layer and other climate patterns. The interconnectedness of all the shells shouldn't be underestimated. Space sustainability isn't just about protecting our space. It is about recognizing how our actions in space can exacerbate our problems on Earth. So my proposal is for us to start taking care of each orbit according to the severity of the problem. Urgently track smaller LEO objects to expand the charted area. Change the legal framework to advocate for more associations and fewer redundancies in the infrastructure. Everyone having their own constellation isn't going to happen. Yes, to agree and work together in a competition-driven model of a world seems like an impossible task, but every human being knows deep inside that choices today have ripple effects on the collective future of humanity. So please, let's unite for a sustainable use of space. Thank you very much. I leave you with Alan Herbert. Thanks.
Let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a
Good afternoon. It is so exciting to be here. You know, as we go deeper and deeper into space, as space becomes more and more commercialized, we looked at the problem of space debris. And of course, we have been focusing on that for a while. But most of the space debris have been focused on satellites or spent rocket parts, things like that. But what I like to focus on is, and it's happening, is organic debris as well as associated material. One of the things, if we're going to be a circular space economy, and if we're going to have millions, that's a lot of people, millions of people living and working in space, we really have to look at how we deal with waste in space. You know, we can't, depending on where we are, everything can't be burned up in orbit. You can't burn up anything in orbit around the moon or even on a celestial planet. So we have to. It's very important to look at technologies and techniques that are recyclable. And the way we do that is really focusing on stuff that could be reused. One of the things is that, which I really enjoy about focusing on this, is that same recyclable technology can be used on Earth. And that can impact things we're doing here already, such as climate change and food security, which I'm passionate about. And some of the different solutions, such as waste reutilization, water reutilization, energy efficiency, lighting, robotics, AI, all these are different technologies we can use in space and also on Earth to make a real impact on greening the Earth. The other thing is solutions is waste technology development. Secondly, also looking at ventures. What type of companies have dual purpose technologies that can be used on space and Earth, which even grows the market. Third, packaging technology, which is really important. Many people don't think about that. Fourth is looking at appliances that have waste reutilization already in them. And then the fifth thing is advocacy. How can we really move towards advocacy? And then lastly, I always like to look at how, as an individual, what we can do. And one of the first things is whether you're from a university, private sector, company, venture capital firm, government, whatever it is, to really start looking at pushing that sector into R&D in waste reutilization and recycling in space and as well as on Earth. Then secondly, as an individual, I'm one of these people that when you go eat somewhere or you're at a conference and you see food wastage, it just really gets to me. I lived in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and there was a lot of food wastage. I live here now in Las Vegas, the same. And when you're in space, we cannot do that. Everything that you utilize has to be put back into that circular system, which is really important, something we really, as an individual, look what we do as an individual and live like we're living in space. Then lastly, this is so really important, the media. The media has a big impact on who we are and how we do things. When I was growing up, there was no STEM programs. It was TV for me. It was Space 1999, Star Trek, Lost in Space, or whatever. That was my STEM program. Oh, and even on Saturday mornings, all I wanted to watch is things dealing with space. But if you were in my household between 12 and 1 o'clock, you had to watch Soul Train, basically. So then I could go and watch whatever I wanted to. But what I saw is that this affected me. I wanted to be an aerospace engineer from what I saw on TV. So media is very important. So as a space sustainability community, it's important that we look at these things. A very famous author, African-American author, Toni Morrison, she said this. She said, if there is a book out there that you cannot find, then you need to write it yourself. As space sustainability community, we need to write our own stories for the general public, be it TV, podcast, radio, books, short stories, long stories. We need to do that ourselves so we can get this out to the general public. And I think we can really, really make a big impact. So thank you very much for this opportunity. The next person who's coming up is Malkia Kelelue. And I really enjoy this, and I think we're going to really make a big impact. Thank you very much.
Let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a million nights just like this. So let's get down to business.
Habari zenu, mabibi na mabwana. Kwa majina naitwa Malkia Kelelue. Mimi ni mwanasayansi kutoka Kenya Space Agency. Nafanya kazi ya space. Hamnielewi? Kweli, si ndio? Do you understand me? No. What if I told you that decisions about you, your children, their future, and the future of the generations to come was being made in a language that you've never heard of, that you do not understand? What would you think about that? The space sector is primarily dominated by first world countries. Men occupy most roles in science and engineering. Racial and cultural minorities are greatly underrepresented, and people with disabilities are basically excluded. But is this important for space sustainability? Does it really have an effect on humans' place in space? In 2019, NASA had a brilliant idea of an all-female spacewalk. Unfortunately, it did not happen. Technical issues? Not really. They didn't have enough spacesuits for women. So if the highest or the most brilliant companies in space are forgetting something as simple as female attire, what other more pivotal aspects of D&I are not regarded? So this appeals to your empathy, yes, but let me give you some statistics. A company called Ivona that recruits primarily for the space sector showed that companies that prioritize D&I have increased profitability, revenue, collaboration, and decision-making. And further, a study by Boston Consulting Group in 2018 showed that companies with higher D&I had a 19% increase in innovation revenue. So for an industry like the space industry that relies highly on state-of-the-art technology and innovation, these are important statistics. There are efforts to promote diversity and inclusion, but most of the time they focus on gender and ethnicity without considering economic disparities, physical capabilities, and socioeconomic disparities. And there's still the challenge of discrimination. With a limited group of individuals, you have limited perspective, limited skills, limited capabilities. D&I prioritization therefore means a more productive and effective space sector that is more likely to ensure our sustainability in space. Thank you for your time. I'll introduce the next speaker, who is Michelle Lucas.
Let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a million nights just like this.
We want and need to tackle the challenges of sustainability, environmentalism in space. We need to tackle our challenges with national security. But we can't even truly begin to discuss how we tackle these things until we face head-on our challenge of workforce development. Einstein said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting a different outcome. And yet, consistently, that is one of the things that I see in our industry. We have a lot of different companies that have a lot of differences, but also a lot of similarities, and not just that the pointy end of the rocket goes up. We have workforce issues across the board, small companies, big companies, whether you need to hire 10 or 10,000. We don't have enough students studying STEM to fill our gaps. Per the studies, we will be short about 3 million students by the end of this decade to fill the jobs. And we feel that very directly here in the aerospace industry. We have to go to a new well. We do a lot of different things to engage students in STEM, but traditionally, they're the kind of things that are engaging students that we would have matriculated already. We go to the same well and we're getting the same students. They're awesome students, don't get me wrong. But if we want to fill those gaps for those new jobs that didn't exist 2 decades ago, I mean, let's face it, when I was going to college, there was no astronaut experience coordinator job that I could apply for. I would have liked that. I think that's pretty cool. We have new jobs evolving, more companies. We need more students. We need more wells. We need to attract the students who aren't already geeked out about STEM. When we talk about diversity, we have to talk about diversity in a variety of ways. Yeah, the traditional ones that you've heard about here and everywhere else. But when you start doing STEM engagement, you need some diversity there that expands what is our usual. You need to not just go to the science teacher and the math teacher and the robotics club. You have to go to the art teacher and the language teacher and the history teacher. We need those students to become part of the pipeline to fill our gaps. Programs like the Team America Rocketry Challenge and Zero Robotics are amazing, and I love to see the incredible things that students do with respect to those programs. But we've got those kids. They're gonna come into our industry. How do we get the student who says to you, well, I don't know, I kind of like to do Bob Ross paintings, but I'm pretty sure there's no place in space for me because I'm not very good at math and science? How do you bring that student to be part of our workforce? You have to go to a new well. You have to expand your STEM opportunities. And while we're at it, I'm gonna foot stomp something here that some of you have heard me foot stomp before. We're really great at making sure there are a lot of opportunities for elementary and middle school students because we gotta get them early, right? And while that is true, we miss an entire swath of our population of student possibilities. High schoolers are the most underserved portion of the population when it comes to STEM programming for students who aren't already STEM superstars. There's a mentality of, well, if we don't have them by high school, we're not gonna get them. If we could take even a fraction of those students who aren't sure that there's a place for them in STEM or space and bring them into our workforce, maybe the number wouldn't be in the millions. We have to keep engaging with them, and we have to show them there is space in space for all of them. We must go to a new well to fill our workforce. And all of you, whether you like it or not, are one of the individuals who has to help pick up that shovel and help us dig those new wells to keep our STEM workforce strong, to keep our space industry, and as I like to say, our space family, growing. I want us to tackle sustainability And I want us to be cognizant of our space environment, and of course, national security. But to do that, we need human power. We have the greatest asset at our disposal. Two things kids love, space and dinosaurs. We've got to use space to get more students into our workforce. Space inspires, and all of you are part of that. Next up, we have Yumna Majeed.
Let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a million nights just like this. So let's get down to business.
Hi. When I was 14, I was told by my science teacher that there is no such thing as space, and if you try to go up there, you will die. This discouraged me so much that I changed my classroom and my class section, actually. So one day I was playing in the ground and an ex-classmate came and said, "Yumna, is that you?" I was like, "Yeah, that's me." She said, "But you're normal." I asked, "Yeah, I'm normal. Why are you asking like this?" She was like, "Since you have this dream of going to a place which does not even exist, we thought you're a mentally disabled child." This was an eye-opener to this lack of space awareness in my country, but also role of a teacher in building and breaking dreams of their students. So in the quest of becoming an astronaut, I became a space-focused science communicator. During my journey, when I got to know about space sustainability, a question came in my mind. As a science communicator, I go to students and I encourage them to explore space, and I tell them the benefits of space on Earth, but do I also tell them about how our actions impact space? Our upcoming generations have to address not only climate change, but also the problems of space debris. We must equip them with knowledge and skills to make informed decisions, but also the emotional connectedness towards Earth and space to be a responsible space steward. This brings us to the idea of nurturing space-age environmentalists. Communicating observational sciences to children is often very difficult because we cannot bring the entire cosmos or the orbit to the classroom. But we have one of the very powerful tools in science communication, that is the art of storytelling. With the art of storytelling, we have the capacity of creating very compelling narratives and tales that can not only allow students to appreciate the marvels of space, but also to instill a profound sense of connectedness that understands their role in safeguarding space as well as Earth. There are hardly any interactive educational resources in current STEM education practices that can combine the excitement of space exploration with responsible space practices. And if we want a future generation which should be responsible space steward, we should definitely engage them in such learning experiences which can shape the young minds to conserve the environment not only on Earth, but also in space. Leading aerospace companies who have solutions to space debris can collaborate with skilled science communicators and space educators to develop and deliver engaging learning experiences that goes beyond the technical knowledge. Additionally, this education must encompass the global nature of space exploration. Students need to understand that space is a shared resource, and actions of one country or one organization can impact the endeavors of others. Educators and science communicators can play an essential role in preparing today's youth to become responsible space custodians. They can foster young individuals who not only have deep passion for space exploration, but also possess the knowledge and skills to make well-informed decisions and empathy to ensure that their exploration don't harm the very environment they are eager to investigate. Thank you. And now the next person is Claire Nelson.
Let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a million nights just like this. So let's get down.
They say there's nowhere in the world you can go and not meet up with at least one Jamaican. Well, I was the first Jamaican on the moon back in 2033. This is my third time now in 2038, and I want to welcome you in Earthland to Lunaville, the moon base of the Upstarts, the group that brought you sustainability in space. How we share space? That is what has been driving me from the moment I stepped into space, 2016 until now. I'm Dr. Claire Nelson, founder of the Omni Africa Space Exploration Analog Simulation. Well, you might say, how we share space? It's a big question. Space is big. But jump with me to 2035 and imagine, if you will, International Space Flight Day. And air traffic control systems have grown. And what's happening? The Global Space Futures Collaboratory has developed a twin simulation. This has helped to solve the problem because what? We have not solved the problem about space traffic protocol. We are here because we need to enable a shift from the status quo to space sustainability. We cannot go on as business as usual in this space agenda. We have to recognize that we are here because something needs to change to bring us to a world where all of us can enjoy the benefits of space as well as the pleasures of space. The reality is we are in a race for space. Big 5 countries, and of course emerging nations beginning to take up space to ensure no one is left behind. And meanwhile, the private sector, which was not contemplated when this whole shebang began, are putting up more satellites and building more rockets and planning to build even a movie set in space. So yes, there's space traffic management, and there is celestial bodies problems, and we heard about environmental protection issues, and so many potential negative effects of what we're doing in space. But these, importantly, are systems of systems challenges that makes them very complex. Space system is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. It is a VUCA world out there, folks. Industry 4.5, Industry 5.0, Industry 6.0, crowding in at the same time, and we have to answer questions such as, is space a global common and a common good, or is space for the private sector? And it's to the victor go the spoil. Hear ye, hear he. Whoever arrives first gets to take it all. The question again, my friends, is how will we share space from the moon to Mars and beyond into the great future that is space, that emerging future that is space? The reality that if indeed space is ever expanding, do we really get to claim that we're living in a resource-constrained society? Maybe not. Well, how do we get there? Well, for me, the developer of the Smart Futures framework, we need to use a Smart Futures mindset. We have to become futures illiterate, understanding that we must always design for sustainable systems, always use meaningful metrics, always recognize that there are many agents in the system. We must design for resilience, and we must use technology in a very transformational way. We must create a safe, just space for all that ensures the way in which we do our governance systems, our engineering systems, our policies, all come together to enable us to have a space sector that not only serves current generations, but generations to come. The year 3000, the year 4000, the year 5000, and way, way, way beyond that we can even contemplate. Yes, a safe, just space for all. This is the future we want. So imagine, if you will, with me, a global space futures collaboratory, a transnational, transdisciplinary, multi-sectoral, multimodal system of systems, think, do, tank, designed to solve problems, designed to be agile and adaptable, to be emergent, so that we can together rehearse the future using new technologies of gamification and simulation and digital twins. We have to be able to use new systems to help us address problems that will emerge. There are many ways in which we can organize, and some of them will be, how do we get started in such an idea? Well, by being here, perhaps we can connect and get us together to look at the capabilities we need. So if we imagine in 2035, not disaster, we will have solved beforehand, and we will have people able to use space, such as AFCONSAT, the group I'm working to develop, having 250 satellites in space, using our space-centric model to create the right technology to manage what we have. So yes, we will learn to share space because we will move from a state of future shock, peering into the future with blinders on, to a space of future sense where we recognize the challenges and meet them head on, applying foresight and insight to embrace our whole intelligence. We will become futures illiterate. We will learn to share not only space, but do a better job of sharing our planet Earth. The reality, friends, that we must learn from indigenous peoples that it's not just the earth that doesn't belong to us. The fact is, the cosmos do not belong to us. We belong to the cosmos, and we need a new earth covenant to ensure we share the cosmos. Thank you for your attention. Next up in our group of upstarts is Chau Nguyen.
Let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a million.
Hello, Asen. I'm super excited to be here today. So let me tell you a little bit about what I have to talk about. About a week ago, I took my Cub Scouts on a little hike in a beautiful park. As we were walking down the trails, the Cub Scouts noticed, holy cow, look at that. Litter spewed all over this empty bench. And right next to it was your trash bin. The person there before didn't have the cognizance to put the debris in the trash bin. The scouts commented, don't they know the outdoor code? Don't they know that we should respect our environment? Don't they know that we should be conservation-minded? As adults, we teach our children to respect our environment, care for and be mindful of our natural resources. As adults, we have to contend with plastic pollutions in our ocean, nanoplastics in our seafood, and other pollutants all over us. What's next? Lower Earth orbit, our next environment, LEO. We've got thousands of orbital debris circling around us. With every addition of a mega constellation, there are more man-made objects placed in LEO. So what does it matter? Do we care? Does anybody care about this stuff? Think about this. A couple days ago, on space.com, there was an article. Scientists believe that man-made object, space junk, as it comes back into the Earth orbit, burns up and creates pollution. Really? So aluminum oxide is created when space junk, which are aluminum-based, burn up in the atmosphere. Aluminum oxide burns our ozone. So what does all this really matter to us? Orbital debris. The tracking of orbital debris is managed by a couple government space agencies. The data set provided to us are limited, right? They're watered down. What if, think about this for a minute, what if we can use a CubeSat in orbit today to be our sensors? What if those CubeSats can help gather the orbital debris, share the data amongst themselves, send those data back to Earth in an open source database format so that other space operators can use it? Wouldn't it benefit us collectively as a community? Having access to readily available data to create a safer mission? Other considerations, economic impact. You think about this, every conjunction avoidance activity has an economic impact. Human resource impact, Cost to produce that report to send to some agencies out there somewhere? Cost of time to explain to your client that, hey, we blew up your satellite because I didn't see that orbital debris coming at us. All these load factors come into play. So what are our options? Do we go with the status quo? Or do we say, let's share our data? Let's reach out to our neighbor, our fellow space operator, my fellow space mega constellation partners. Let us come together, look at the data, look at what's out there, so that we can create a safer environment, a more sustainable space environment. Sharing is caring. So thank you. And now I'd like to introduce my esteemed D12 colleague and team member, Grecia the Great, and she is great. Grecia, come on up.
Let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a million nights just like this. So let's get down to business.
Hello everyone. I want to know, have you heard about the province of Quebec? That's where I live. So Quebec is the French-speaking province of Canada, and I want to share to you today what is Canada doing from a space sustainability perspective, specifically from a regional perspective, to tackle the space debris problem. Over the summer, I had the opportunity to work with CREAC, which stands for the Consortium of Research and Innovation in Quebec. It's for aerospace research, and we had the opportunity to partner with the Canadian Space Agency, GHGSat, North Star Aerospace, and Euroconsult to take a look at the problematic of space debris. There was a technical assessment that was carried out, a business and economic assessment, a legal assessment, and of course, an outreach and awareness assessment. Most of the time, when people think about the space debris problem, we're focusing mostly on technical solutions, how to retrieve space debris, how can we have regulations that support this sustainable regulations that ensure safe disposal of our satellites. And from a business and economic perspective, we're thinking, how can we fund all these initiatives which can be costly? However, it is important to also consider that outside of the technical and business perspective that we need to look into, we also need to think about awareness and outreach. And to that end, I'd like to specifically share with you some of the interesting initiatives that Quebec, specifically CREAC, is promoting in order for Canada to start helping out all the different players in the space sector when it comes to space sustainability. So through this research, we identify so many different opportunities from encouraging space actors to participate in taking a stand through policy papers, to participating in campaigns with social media and whatnot. But we also discover some interesting opportunities to share knowledge. So for example, we're considering launching an initiative called Ask an Expert, where basically you will have different space actors collaborate with experts on space sustainability to understand what are the challenges that are being faced locally and nationally in their fight against space debris and whatnot. This is very important because regulations are very specific to country, and the resources that each country has available are also specific to certain regions and specific constraints. So we thought that having an initiative like this for Canada specifically will be a great way to encourage different space stakeholders to participate. We also talk about leveraging the power of social media through organizing campaigns such as Zero Debris by 2030. And lastly, I'd like to mention another initiative that was discussed, which would be perhaps organizing a Safe for Space working group. Now, this initiative is very interesting because it involves collaborating with professionals from the aviation sector. And we have noticed through research that there is a number of professionals that transition from aviation into space and vice versa. So by being able to share knowledge between these two groups and identify risks that are to the space environment that can be caused from space activities, there's a great potential to bring awareness to sectors outside of space. To conclude, I would like to invite you all to follow on CREAC and all the amazing research opportunities that are available. I also want to say that what I discovered through this research is that everybody is interested in helping solve space sustainability. We found great support from everybody involved, but it's also important to provide mediums for different people to participate and contribute, no matter their background. And with that, I would like to conclude this presentation and introduce the next speaker, which is Kristen Price. Thank you for your time.
Let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a million nights just like this. So let's get down to business. Let's get down to business.
The potential of space is immense. There are so many facets: economic, geopolitical, Earth preserving. Earth's resources are finite. Space-enabling infrastructure can make leveraging space for the benefit of Earth possible. This is the legacy. As a collective industry, we have an opportunity to transition to the next generation, building out that infrastructure step by step. I feel incredibly grateful to have an opportunity to play a part in this space renaissance for future generations, but personally, for my own children. I'll highlight 3 areas of focus for sustainable development in space: commercial viability, inclusion, and advocacy. Commercial viability. For infrastructure to be enabling, it needs to balance the needs of private companies, governments, NGOs, space consumers, and the Earth itself. Historically, space initiatives have been driven by well-funded governments. We've accomplished amazing feats, but with changes in funding, we haven't been able to sustain what we've done and build upon it continuously. Commercial viability can provide continuity in times when government priorities shift, ensuring technology still progresses. We've seen commercial LEO demonstrated, launches evolving quickly. Just a few short years ago, we couldn't launch astronauts to the ISS from American soil. With that capability regained, this time with booster reusability, additional launch systems are coming online to make that a more viable case. Space tourism is also progressing. 31 astronauts have been launched above the Kármán line on New Shepard, and Virgin's gearing up for a 5th commercial spaceflight in as many months in the next couple of weeks. They're different solutions, but making space more accessible and more real. We've got challenges on the horizon. On-orbit satellite servicing, transition after the ISS, payload services to the moon, transportation within space. Commercial interest in these applications, complemented by government needs, most beneficial for sustainable development, will be key. Commercial viability is also better through inclusion. Inclusion of entities and individuals maybe not previously prioritized. Diverse entities need to be represented in sustainable space development. What can we learn from industries that have come before us? Automotive, oil and gas, also international. They can inform supply chain choices, customer engagements. Artemis Accords are a good example here. Critics would say that they're non-binding, but they've started the conversation, and that conversation we need to have when we're trying to decide where we go next. Within those diverse entities, we also need diverse perspectives. Women and people of color particularly remain underrepresented. Women only about 20% in our industry. There's lots of efforts to make it better, but that's where we're at today. Leads me to my final area of focus. Advocacy. Everyone here cares immensely about space. We need more non-space people to see value in and care about space. So much what we get now from space, we take for granted. We need to have those conversations just generally with our friends and neighbors in our communities. Advocacy can be even more important when we're talking about future generations. At Blue Origin, we've got Club for the Future, focused on really making space accessible and also inspiring future generations to figure out what the problems are and then be excited to build and go into the field. It also amplifies the work that great organizations like my D12 colleague of higher orbits is working. We're amplifying efforts that are already in place because there are a lot. Building sustainable infrastructure will help us build this path to space so that it won't be specific projects, but it will be enabling sustainability through infrastructure in meaningful ways to influence our future. Consider ways thinking and acting on commercial viability, inclusion, and advocacy might be possible in your current or future role as space leaders. This is the legacy we can leave for future generations, rather than memories of past achievements, while continuing to protect Earth. Thank you. Next up, my colleague, Alejandro Roman.
Let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a million nights just like this. So let's get down,
When I was just 9 years old, riding my bike in a small town in my beloved country, Paraguay, in the 80s, sometimes extraordinary changed my life forever. I stopped when I witnessed a biggest and most beautiful moonrise in the horizon. It was an unparalleled sight and a unique view of the moon at the end of the rural road. I was amazed. And that moment became a profound epiphany. It marked the beginning of my deep fascination with space. I dreamed of becoming an astronaut and scientist, or engaging in any endeavor that would allow me to explore and understand the mysteries of space. It was a calling, a passion that will shape my life. After that, I dedicated 25 years of my career working on civil aviation and information technology. At that time, it was the closest profession I could find related to my dream of working on something connected with space. But eventually, my dream became a reality when I joined a newly formed Paraguayan space agency 7 years ago. Our fascination with space has been an integral part of human history. The stars have always captivated us, and our interest in space has transformed into a practical and ambitious industry, space exploration. We are on the cusp of a new era, where the possibility of living Earth and being multiplanetary species is becoming a reality as science and technology advance. However, amid all the excitement and development, we must address a critical issue that sometimes goes unnoticed in space and here on Earth. I want to talk to you today about an urgent and vital matter that affects each and every one of us as inhabitants of this precious planet. But before diving into this topic, I want to emphasize that taking action doesn't always require grand gestures or massive efforts. Small, tangible steps can sometimes raise awareness and inspire others to join the cause. Space sustainability and space environmentalism might not be terms you hear every day, but they are concepts that should be in the minds of every person of this planet. It's not just a necessity, it is an obligation we have as a species that has ventured beyond our atmosphere and into the vast reaches of outer space. Our journey into space has been inspiring, but it has also left a trail of debris and environmental challenges that we can no longer afford to ignore. We have reached a pivotal moment in history where we must take responsibility for our actions and ensure the continuity of space operation for future generations. So, what does space environmentalism mean to me? It means recognizing that space is not an infinite resource, and we cannot afford to exploit it recklessly. We must develop policies, regulations, tools, methods, new construction materials, and propulsion systems, prioritizing sustainability and responsible utilization of outer space and its resources. One critical aspect of space sustainability is space traffic management. Just as we have traffic rules on our roads to prevent accidents and ensure smooth flow, we need similar regulations in space. With the growing numbers of satellites, space stations, and commercial ventures, effective space traffic management is vital to avoid collisions and creating even more debris. The time for action is now. We cannot afford to wait any longer. This is a ticking time bomb. Our planet, our environment, and our future depends on how we handle the challenges of space environmentalism, and not just about protecting space, it is about protecting our planet. Because what happens in space affects us here, in the words of Carl Sagan, on this beautiful blue dot we call home. So, I urge all of you, whether if you are a scientist, an engineer, a politician, an advocate, or simply someone who cares about the future, to let's come together and prioritize space sustainability and space environmentalism. Together, we can ensure a sustainable and prosperous future for ourselves and for the generations to come, and let others, like me, continue falling in love with space. Thank you, Asen. Thank you, Moriba, for giving all of us a voice. Thank you very much.
Everybody, I want to thank everybody for being here. Bring out all the D12 and thank the AIAA Ascends. Keep the music pumping, keep the music pumping. These people came from around the globe to give you all a message of environmentalism, sustainability. Let's help Spaceship Earth thrive. Each and every one of these folks is dedicating their lives to being part of the solution. And I guess we implore each and every one of you to embrace the interconnectedness amongst all things, to embrace our intergenerational contract of stewardship, and to recruit empathy towards solving these problems. So, I don't know, if you want to get up and dance, you should dance, but turn the music up. Let's go. Woo!